What's it been, like 6 months now? I feel like I've started out all these with an apology for how long they took. And look, I mentioned in the last video, but I had a very clear plan for how this year was gonna go in terms of my channel. I was supposed to have like 3 more Warrior Cats videos done this year, and then multiple things either happened or came out I wanted to talk about, and then I moved. Look at this bin. This is almost all Warriors books. And now here we are. Merry Christmas! This is the Christmas special. Warrior Cats don't believe in Jesus, I don't. So this is going to be a long one, unfortunately for me. Like, to be brutally honest, Warrior Cat videos are super hard to edit because this isn't really like a visual medium, right? There's official art, but there's not that much official art. I can't just put down random footage of Ethan Winters shooting some dudes if I don't know what to put. So yeah, forgive me if the editing is lacking this time around. I am so tired. So today, we're going to be diving into the spirituality and religion in Warrior Cats. We aren't going to be going over everything, because literally the idea of religion is present in every single book in the series, except for a few in the mangas. And there's over 90 books. And again, tired. So this is just a discussion about the aspects that stood out to me personally. So as you probably know if you're watching, like, what is this, part 5 of this series, is that there are 4 main clans. Thunder Clan, River Clan, Shadow Clan, and Wind Clan, and they all worship their warrior ancestors who live in Star Clan, which is located in Silverpelt, the cat's name for the starry sky. Star Clan cats are all very mystical, and are described as looking frosty and having stars in their fur. Something that seems exclusive only to Star Clan cats, since when Pebbleshine dies, she's told that she'll look like that too once she officially enters Star Clan. Clan cats typically go to Star Clan by default, unless they are completely and utterly evil, at which they get sent to the Dark Forest, otherwise known as the Place of No Stars, which is introduced in the New Prophecy arc. The Dark Forest is this big, endless, dark forest with no prey, and where no stars are ever visible, and where the cats, who had grown up in a very close-knit clan system, are forced to wander alone. The idea of the cats in the Dark Forest having to be alone is literally dropped the book after it's introduced. Maybe Tiger Star just didn't want to hang out with Darkstripe and was making excuses. There was apparently just a border between StarClan and the Dark Forest that only StarClan cats could cross, until the Broken Code, where there was a tunnel with a guard to keep anyone from crossing through. Although it varies based on the current storyline, by and large it seems that StarClan mostly just communes with the clan's medicine cats, who are the healers and spiritual advisors for the clan. Fireheart had a special connection with StarClan despite being an ordinary warrior, but that was seen as unusual and rare. In Midnight, when Brambleclaw has a straight-up conversation with a StarClan cat, he is sure it must have just been a dream, because StarClan doesn't speak to regular warriors. The Dark Forest doesn't care though, especially in the 4th arc. They appear to everyone and anyone and set up a boot camp to train their recruits. In the first series, the medicine cats travel to this old abandoned mine where there's like a giant diamond or something. The wiki calls it a quartz. This is the moonstone, and the medicine cats travel here every half moon to press their noses against it, enter a deep sleep, and then speak to their ancestors. And after the first series, they do this at this pretty little starlit pool known as the Moon Pool. New leaders come to these places to get their 9 lives. Yes, the cats and warriors have 9 lives. Or, well, some of them. Only the leaders. When a leader suffers a fatal injury or gets horribly, horribly sick, they just kind of hop back into their body with 1 less life than before and continue on as usual. There is apparently the risk of an evil spirit getting back to their body before they can and possessing it and leaving the leader trapped in the afterlife while the evil cat uses their body as a meat puppet. But nah, you know, nothing to worry about there. Another thing that stood out to me as being kind of interesting was the idea that when you die, you take the form of the age you were happiest at. So Blue Star was happiest when she was young, so her spirit looks young and fit, whereas Yellowfang found happiness in her old age, so her spirit is old. The only exception to this is if you died when you were particularly young. Kits who died as kits are kits forever, same with apprentices. There is a weird exception to that rule. There's this story in Code of the Clans where this warrior lets free kittens die, and then they appear to him later as full-grown adults. alright. And of course, you can't have a fantasy story without prophecies. Lots and lots of prophecies. Firestar saves the entire forest because of a prophecy. Brambleclaw kills his half-brother because of a prophecy. A bunch of ancient cats are reincarnated with superpowers because of a prophecy. Yes, reincarnation exists in Warriors, and it's pretty bad. Cinderpelt is reincarnated into Cinderheart, but then in the Last Hope, Cinderpelt's spirit is separated from Cinderheart's. So, Cinderpelt was actually just possessing Cinderheart's body? Is that what reincarnation is in this universe? Well, no, because Jayfeather, Lionblaze, and Dovewing are all reincarnations too, and they're literally the spirits of ancient cats taking on a new body. And sometimes Jayfeather goes back into the body of his old life, Assassin's Creed style, and just hangs out with his old life's friends and love interest and affects policy and change. It's really bizarre. But probably the weirdest aspect of the spirituality in the series is that the dead can die a second time. This can happen a few different ways. Cats who died generations ago will start to slowly fade until they are gone. This is more or less presented as a peaceful thing, like they are finally getting to rest. Although seemingly, if they are important enough to be remembered, they don't fade. The second way the dead can die is that they can be murdered. Seriously. Now, dead cats are shown to physically interact with objects in the real world from time to time, such as when Pebbleshine is giving birth and Micah gives her a stick to bite down on, or Fallen Leaves pushing down on Hollyleaf and catching her a fish. And the idea of the dead being able to harm the living is introduced in the new prophecy. Brambleclaw wakes up after training with Tigerstar in his dreams and finds himself bleeding in the real world. So, the dead can physically harm living cats, and can in fact kill them. Antpelt receives some nasty wounds from Thistleclaw and dies later as a result, and Broken Star just straight up murders Beetle Whisker when he decides he doesn't want to train in the Dark Forest anymore. Beetle Whisker literally just vanishes in the real world. He's said to have disappeared from his nest, and his body is said to be stuck in the Dark Forest forever. But it goes the other way too. The living can kill the dead. We see this for, I think, the first time in The Forgotten Warrior, when Ivypool kills the spirit of Antpelt. And it happens a lot in The Last Hope. A lot of characters who died 4 series ago and still remain important to the plot in ghost form die in this book. Hell, Tigerstar dies a 10th time in this book. Good for him. And there isn't any kind of a sub-afterlife they get sent into or anything. They're just gone. They just fade away into nothingness. This has happened to a total of 1 living cat as well. A Light in the Mist just came out, and it ends with the main protagonist, Bristlefrost, dying and immediately fading away. I found out about this because, Twitter immediately exploded. So apparently it isn't just dead cats that fade away to nothing. Anyone who dies in the Dark Forest also fades away. Which I guess also means Beetle Whisker probably did too. Even though the wiki says that he probably ended up in the Dark Forest. I don't know. But either way, Bristlefrost is, so far, the only time we ever really see this in the series. Now, the existence of these afterlives and how prevalent they are in the story does kind of ruin the stakes a little bit. Like, if a character dies, they aren't gone forever. They'll just appear in StarClan a few books later. Characters like Blue Star and Yellowfang died in the first series, and just kept showing up dozens of books later. I think this is why Bristlefrost's death in the most recent book hit so many people so hard. Well, that and another reason I'll hopefully talk about in the future, but we're used to clan cats, especially clan cats who are important to the plot, showing up again after their deaths. But she never will. She's actually gone forever. That's honestly one of the most intense things that have ever happened in this series. And the bar is Tigerstar dying 10 times. Honestly, there are way too many weird quirks and intricacies in this system to cover them all in any kind of depth, especially especially in the new series, which features possessed and living characters getting dragged into the afterlife, and that some cats can just mind control ghosts. Not that ghosts are anything new. There's a straight up ghost character named Fallen Leaves who lives in a cave system under the clan and has a somewhat romantic relationship with a living cat who doesn't even seem to know he's dead. There's an ancient hairless cat ghost who also lives in the tunnels who is cursed and sometimes likes to tell bedtime stories to lost kittens. There's also a mystical badger who can talk to StarClan in other afterlives and shares knowledge of an upcoming eclipse with passerby who ends up using that knowledge to turn ShadowClan into a weirdo cult, and cats who have straight up magical powers both in the clans and out of them. It's all pretty insane. And trust me, I'm only going to be scratching the surface in this video. If I was to cover every single direction taken with the spirituality in this series, we'd be here for days. And as it is, we're already gonna be here for an hour and a half. There's also a fair amount of Christian influence throughout this thing. Obviously, this isn't a one-to-one comparison, There's no cat god or cat devil or anything. The cats in both afterlives are on more or less equal footing and seem to govern themselves, albeit with some cats having stronger personalities than others. But still, the good cats go to a good afterlife explicitly said to be in the sky and are seen as wise guardians and protectors, and bad cats go to a bad afterlife that is apparently underground, or at least underneath where StarClan is, and are often shown tricking and corrupting average warriors for their own twisted ends. And medicine cats, seen as the spiritual advisors, aren't allowed to take mates or have kits. This is something that is often bemoaned in the fan base. A lot of people think that's a stupid rule, and that the reason usually given for this rule, that the medicine cats can't have biases, doesn't make any sense. Because yeah, obviously, they'd still have parents and siblings and friends. But the thing I don't think I've ever seen anyone bring up, and maybe people have, but I've never seen anyone bring it up, is that there is an actual real-life equivalent to this. Catholic priests are also not allowed to get married and have kids, and nuns have to take a vow of celibacy. Yeah, I'm alleging that the reason medicine cats aren't allowed to start families is the same reason Hogwarts celebrates Christmas. The authors are probably Christian and it slipped into their writing. Granted, I don't have any real evidence for this. It's just speculation on my part, but it makes sense to me. I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. StarClan is present in this series from the very beginning, from the prologue of the very first book, in fact. It's introduced when the ThunderClan leader, Blue Star, sits down and has a conversation with her medicine cat, Spotted Leaf, despairing over her clan's recent loss and asking if StarClan has shared their guidance. When all of a sudden, Spotted Leaf has a vision and receives a prophecy. Fire alone will save our clan. Blue Star is actually kind of skeptical because fire bad, but ends up shrugging it off and says that Spotted Leaf has never been wrong before, so it must be true. Then we meet Rusty, a little house cat who lives just outside ThunderClan and has strange prophetic dreams that end up leading him to join ThunderClan. He doesn't actually find out about StarClan until after he joins ThunderClan, and he's completely open to the idea. No questions from this one. Dead Star Cat's cool. I guess to be fair though, he learns about all this at a funeral. It would be rude to ask questions. He does take note of the fact that the name Blue Star picks out for him, Firepaw, seems to have some significance outside of just his orange coloring. He just doesn't understand what it is. We also get confirmation that StarClan is no doubt 100% real, because at one point Blue Star dies and comes back to life. She also gets told by StarClan that they have to get back to ThunderClan as soon as possible because the clan is in danger, which turns out to be true. And Firepaw had a similar dream where he could hear Greypaw crying out in grief and is alarmed when he hears it later in real life. Spotted Leaf also dies in this book and starts visiting Fireheart in his dreams. He doesn't even question it. He's just like, oh, cool, Spotted Leaf's here. I love Spotted Leaf. I absolutely adore how Spotted Leaf tells him about the prophecy. She tells Fireheart about the prophecy that says fire will save the clan, and he doesn't put together that it's about him. Fireheart looked at the fire and the cats, and his mind flooded with the memory of his dream, the noise of the thunder path, the sight of the flames and the cats, and Spotted Leaf's voice murmuring, "Fire will save the clan." A surge of emotion made Fireheart's legs feel weak. Did this mean that ThunderClan's fate was bound up with the fate of WindClan? Every orange male cat is a himbo! But I guess to be fair, it's actually really good for his character that he doesn't know he's the chosen one until right before he becomes leader. He puts his life on the line throughout the entire series, not because he's part of a prophecy and it's his destiny, but because he just loves ThunderClan so much, he's willing to die for it. There's literally a part where he realizes he's probably going to have to throw himself off of a cliff in order to save his clan, and there is no hesitation. He decides that if that's what he has to do, then that's what he has to do. With a lot of the later series, the main characters know they are the chosen ones, and there was a lot of talk about what they have to do to fulfill the prophecy, and they're constantly doing things they don't want to do in order for the prophecy to come true. So it's honestly really refreshing to go back to the first series and see Fireheart doing all these heroic things just because he's nice. And literally no other reason. It's kind of the idea that he's the chosen one because he's heroic, and not that he's heroic because he's the chosen one, if that makes any sense. But things, in my opinion at least, don't start getting interesting with the spirituality aspect until Forest of Secrets, when Bluestar's arc truly kicks off. So Bluestar's tragic backstory is basically that once he was a young warrior, she fell in love with a RiverClan Tom, the future deputy Oakheart, and bore his children, right around the time when the ThunderClan deputy was getting ready to retire. Bluefur was in the running to be the new deputy, but apparently nursing queens aren't allowed to be deputy, so she brought her kittens to RiverClan to be raised by their father. The journey there was treacherous. One of her kittens died, and the other two she claimed were taken from the nursery by a fox. They were raised in RiverClan and grew up to be the RiverClan warriors Mistyfoot and Stonefur. She explains this all to Fireheart, and he is, of course, absolutely appalled and asks if there was anyone else who could have been deputy in her place. Oh yes, there was Thistleclaw. He was a fine warrior, strong and brave, but his answer to every problem was to fight. Should I have watched him be made deputy and then leader and let him force the clan into unnecessary wars? He died as he lived, Fireheart, a few seasons before you came to join us, attacking a RiverClan patrol on the border, wild and arrogant to the last. I couldn't stand by and let him destroy my clan. Sometime after this, her deputy Tigerclaw stages an invasion and tries to murder her so he can ascend to power. The only reason Bluestar manages to escape with her life is because Fireheart bursts in at the last second and stops Tigerclaw from finishing the job. But even though his assassination attempt failed, the damage was done. It's not an exaggeration to say that Bluestar's personality does a complete 180 after the assassination attempt. She goes from a calculating, dignified authority figure with a sense of justice and empathy to a hysterical, paranoid wreck who takes her pain out on everyone around her and doesn't even try to lead her clan through any of the catastrophes they go through. This is extremely jarring, and Child Grace honestly hated Bluestar in the last 2 books she was in before she died, but now I think I understand. Clearly she was deeply traumatized by the attempt on her life by someone in her life who she thought she could trust. But what's more interesting is that Bluestar had given her children away in order to prevent a violent, dangerous cat from rising to power and destroying her clan, only for another violent, dangerous cat to rise to power and nearly destroy her clan. Now, in this particular analysis, we're mostly going to be focusing on the way Thistleclaw was described in Forest of Secrets. There have been books written since that have featured Thistleclaw, and there is a lot to say about how he was portrayed in those. but it's not super relevant to the arc Blue Star goes through in the first 6 books, since that iteration of Thistleclaw didn't exist back when these books were written. So, as of Forest of Secrets, Tigerclaw is the worst version of Thistleclaw. When Bluefur became deputy instead of Thistleclaw, Thistleclaw clearly just kind of accepted it. But when Redtail became deputy instead of Tigerclaw, Tigerclaw killed him and then tried to kill Blue Star afterwards. So Blue Star literally sacrificed her children to prevent a dangerous cat from becoming deputy, only for her to appoint a deputy who is even more dangerous. The book even makes the comparison itself when Tigerclaw is exiled. And how many cats would have died for it, Blue Star murmured, almost to herself. Fireheart wondered if she was thinking of Thistleclaw, the arrogant, bloodthirsty warrior she could not have let become deputy instead of her. What makes this even worse, too, is the fact that apparently StarClan had something to do with her decision to give up her kits. If we look at Blue Star's prophecy, we see her Uncle Goosefeather is in her ear telling her that she is prophesized to be deputy and she has to do whatever it takes to achieve that. And StarClan sends her a vision of Thistleclaw covered in blood. And in Secrets of the Clans, we straight up see StarClan saying that her giving up her children is the right thing to do. However, even as far back as Forest of Secrets, Blue Star says, "Our medicine cat had already told me that StarClan held a great destiny for me." So yes, StarClan did play a choice in her decision. She felt like this was what she was destined to do, to give up her kitten so that she could save her clan. And this leads to her feeling a great sense of betrayal, not just from Tigerclaw, but from StarClan themselves. My kids needed me once, but I gave them to another clan to raise. And why? Because StarClan told me I had a different destiny. Is this it? To be attacked by traitors? To watch my clan die around me? StarClan was wrong. It was not worth it. This leads Blue Star to having a full-on crisis of faith. Not in a disbelieving sort of way. Oh no, she still very much believes in StarClan, but, well, at one point in Rising Storm, Blue Star tries to go to Highstones to speak with StarClan. It's not clear why. She probably wants to ask them about the whole Tigerclaw betrayal thing, but she's very desperate to speak with them as soon as possible. But WindClan catches them. WindClan was not exactly a fan of Blue Star at that moment because she was sheltering a cat who caused them a great deal of harm, and they don't let her pass. Blue Star keeps repeating that StarClan grants them safe passage, so in this moment, she is suddenly stripped away of one of the rights granted to clan cats by their ancestors as a punishment for a decision she made. And Blue Star says, StarClan does not want to share dreams with me. Why are they so angry with my clan? And it only gets worse from here. When the fire breaks out and destroys the forest, Blue Star is furious that StarClan told them that fire would save the clan, only for it to nearly destroy it. And then she straight up says that StarClan has declared war on ThunderClan. She refuses to go along with even the most simple tradition or ritual, even when her refusal causes huge amounts of distress, because she refuses to do anything that would honor StarClan. The situation becomes worse when, after refusing to go to a gathering, Fireheart brings her the news that Tigerclaw, the cat who betrayed and tried to murder her, is now Tiger Star, the leader of ShadowClan, meaning that StarClan has accepted him and granted him 9 lives. StarClan has abandoned me. They told me that fire would save the clan, but fire has almost destroyed us. How could I ever trust StarClan again, especially now? They have granted a leader's 9 lives to that traitor. They care nothing for me or for ThunderClan. ThunderClan is doomed. Tiger Star will lead ShadowClan to destroy us all, and we can expect no help from StarClan. So not only is Blue Star upset after thinking StarClan told her to give up her children to stop Thistleclaw, they sent her an even worse Thistleclaw, and then allowed him to become leader. And we know that she thinks that StarClan has sent Tigerstar to specifically destroy her clan because after Brindleface's murder, she says, StarClan have sent Tigerstar to destroy us. They will not help us now. When a bunch of rabbits are found killed and eaten on ThunderClan territory, Blue Star, who was mad about being turned away and also because Tall Star was seen chatting with Tigerstar one time, automatically blames WindClan despite, no evidence, and she decides that the answer is to go to war. Now, Blue Star's description of Thistleclaw was that his answer to every problem was to fight, that he was going to force the clan into unnecessary wars. So Blue Star, over the course of these books, has turned into Thistleclaw. She has turned into the leader she was trying to prevent coming into power in the first place. Fireheart kind of turns into Bluefur in that regard, sneaking around to keep ThunderClan safe from a dangerous leader. He goes to WindClan and has them appeal to Blue Star directly, and Blue Star puts 2 and 2 together and figures out that Fireheart went behind her back, and she is furious. Fireheart was one of the last cats in her clan who she truly trusted, and he just went against her. And her reaction is extremely telling. If only I'd kept my kits. Mistyfoot and Stonefur are noble cats, far nobler than any of this ragtag bunch in ThunderClan. My children would have never betrayed me. I gave them up to become deputy, and now StarClan are punishing me. Oh, StarClan are clever, Fireheart. They knew the cruelest way to break me. They made me leader, and then let my cats betray me. What is it worth now to be leader of ThunderClan? Nothing. It's all empty. I know the best punishment of all. I'll do nothing. I'll let you be deputy still and leader after me. Oh, that should please StarClan. A traitor leading of clan of traitors. May they give you joy of it, Fireheart. Now get out of my sight. The most painful punishment she can think of for Fireheart is for him to be in the exact situation she's in right now. She thinks she is being punished, that she made the wrong decision when she gave up her kittens, and StarClan are slowly turning everyone against her, taking away every ounce of safety and security she has ever known. This is illustrated very well when Blue Star once again goes to travel to the Moonstone. Whereas the first time she took Tigerclaw for protection, along with 3 of the apprentices, and the second time she only took Fireheart, this time she goes completely alone. While it's unclear why she wanted to go to the Moonstone before, this time we're told that she confronted StarClan. She demanded they explain themselves to justify all the hurt they put her through despite how hard she worked to serve them over the years. They don't acknowledge her accusations, but they do send her a sign of destruction. And while Fireheart immediately starts scrambling trying to figure out what the sign means, Blue Star just resigns her clan to death, suggesting that StarClan cannot or will not do anything to help them. Sometime after this, Blue Star and Fireheart lead a patrol to Sunning Rocks and find RiverClan about to attack. And then Stonefur and Mistyfoot corner Blue Star. They're threatening to kill her. Blue Star is obviously not fighting back because they are her children and she's, pretty resigned to death anyways. Fireheart jumps in and tells them that they can't kill Blue Star because she is their mother. Which is, maybe jumping the gun a little. It doesn't really seem like they're actually going to kill her. They're just, baffled that she isn't fighting them. It specifically mentioned Mistyfoot has to unsheathe her claws. That means she already didn't have her claws out. But whatever, the truth gets revealed. Mistyfoot and Stonefur pretty adamantly reject her, but Blue Star cannot read the room. She doesn't care about anything else that is happening. She's just trailing after her kittens, trying to speak to them, telling them that they are welcome to visit her in her den whenever they like. She actually seems confused why they dislike her, and also relieved that they finally know. This doesn't last though, because not long after she says that Fireheart should have let Mistyfoot and Stonefur kill her. Better a quick death at the claws of noble warriors than a life dragged out in a clan I can't trust. A clan doomed to destruction by StarClan. This backs up what she said to Fireheart, that she feels that she's stuck leading leading a clan she no longer cares for, while the only 2 cats she actually does care about are living in an enemy clan. Around the same time, Cloudpaw shows off his atheism, Bluestar approves of it, and then makes him a warrior later that night, specifically citing his lack of faith in StarClan as the reason why. I cannot trust Swiftpaw. Cloudpaw is stronger and braver, and besides, he doesn't grovel to StarClan like the rest of you. The clan needs more warriors like that. This is one of the rare times she actually goes through with a ceremony during this period, but she clearly resents having to do it. There must be a ceremony, I suppose. It means nothing to me, but these cats are so gullible that they'll never accept Cloudpaw without one. So Cloudpaw becomes Cloudtail, and the clan pretty vehemently rejects him. Even Fireheart doesn't think he deserves to be made a warrior. Luckily, Brindleface, the best character, is there to cheer him on, and the rest of the clan comes around. But nonetheless, the other apprentices, most of whom had been training longer than Cloudtail, and also didn't act like giant pricks for most of their apprenticeship, are pretty mad. Swiftpaw and Brightpaw run off to prove themselves strong enough to be warriors by investigating what had been eating all the rabbits, and it doesn't end well. Swiftpaw is mauled to death, and Brightpaw is found barely alive with half of her face chewed off. Cloudtail demands Bluestar give her a warrior name before she dies, and Bluestar actually agrees. I ask my warrior ancestors to look down on this apprentice. She has learned the warrior code and has given up her life in the service of her clan. Let StarClan receive her as a warrior. She will be known as Lost Face, so that every cat knows what StarClan did to take her from us. Bluestar is using Brightpaw as a tool to fire against StarClan, as it were. She is using Brightpaw as a way to ensure that she has StarClan's attention, and then fires at them as hard as she can. Plus, it's a good way to insult StarClan. If Lost Face dies, StarClan will have to accept a warrior who was named after their cruelty into their ranks. And if she lives, she'll be a constant reminder to the clan that StarClan hates them. This is Bluestar using her clanmates as a weapon in this perceived war against their dead ancestors. Now, she does show a touch of regret later on, and that she is saddened that other cats are being hurt in StarClan's vendetta against her, but she's still completely focused on her own feelings. Bluestar is definitely a very self-centered character. She genuinely thought that she had to become deputy to stop Thistleclaw, something that Bluestar's prophecy hints might not have even been necessary, and she thinks that every tragedy is because of her, either because she was too foolish to prevent it, or because everyone hates her and is conspiring against her, or because she thinks she is actively being punished for giving her children away. When the newly named Lost Face starts crying out the words, "Pack, pack, kill, kill," Bluestar connects it to the omen she received, and just immediately assumes StarClan centered the omen because they wanted her to know that she caused this. There is a small theme that shows up here, one that is really interesting for a story so focused around faith, that sometimes things don't happen for a reason. The pack of dogs are a group of guard dogs brought to protect what was left of the tree cutting place after the fire from the previous book. However, the humans put the dogs in a pen, which unfortunately has a little rut under the fence. The dogs find the rut, and they dig themselves out. The dogs weren't sent as a punishment. This is all the culmination of a series of unfortunate events completely unrelated to Bluestar giving her children away. If you want to argue that StarClan does punish the clans, there is certainly an argument to be made there. Botched leadership and deputy ceremonies tend to be followed by rotted food and illness. After Fireheart is appointed deputy too late, they find rotted meat in the fresh kill pile. After Nightstar's leadership is rejected by StarClan, his whole clan is nearly taken out by a disease from rotting food. And after Tallstar fails to say the correct words to make One Whisker his deputy, a dead rabbit poisons the Elder's water supply. Plus you got Mudclaw being taken out by a fallen tree, the whole thing where the moon is covered by clouds whenever StarClan gets angry. But in many places, the series seems to be suggesting that StarClan isn't responsible for any of these occurrences. During the last leg of Bluestar's leadership, ThunderClan is plagued by tragedy after tragedy that both Blue Star and a lot of the rest of the clan view as punishments from StarClan, but they all have explanations. It was extraordinarily dry and hot before the fire broke out. The fire burned away the outer layer of the camp wall, so the hawk was able to swoop into the camp. Humans brought the dogs to protect what was left of their burnt up property. And this is expanded on in other books as well. In the darkest hour, when Firestar tries to expose Tigerstar for the traitor that he is, a storm suddenly breaks out and stops him. Tigerstar points to it as a sign that he is in the right and that StarClan approves of what he is doing. But when Firestar confronts StarClan about it later, they tell him that they didn't send the storm. It was just unlucky that it happened when it did. Plus, you can see Tigerstar looking at the storm clouds during his whole pitch, probably trying to time it so that the storm worked in his favor. Upon finding out that Two Legs are going to bulldoze the forest, Crowpaw argues that StarClan would never let that happen, only for Midnight to respond, StarClan cannot stop it. And Crowpaw doesn't have a response. He's baffled by the idea that something is going to happen that's outside the control of StarClan. And in Moonrise, when discussing the idea that there are other ancestors outside the clans, Bodenleaf says, StarClan does not control the wind or the rain, do they? They do not command the sun to rise or the moon to wax and wane. This seems to suggest that all the instances of the full moon being covered by clouds and the flash of lightning that hit the tree that killed Mudclaw were all coincidental, that StarClan are not all-powerful gods. They don't actually control anything. They aren't special. They're just one group of dead cats out of many. In the new prophecy arc, Feathertail is chosen by StarClan to go on a quest to save the 4 clans, but then ends up becoming the chosen one in a completely different religion's prophecy. And that prophecy takes precedence. Feathertail is unable to complete her quest for StarClan because she dies for a completely different religion she doesn't even believe in. And when the forest is destroyed and the clans have to move, StarClan has to move too. They aren't omnipresent beings living in an alternate world separate from ours. They have to physically walk to another part of the sky. Hell, it's basically just stated that the reincarnated cats who have powers weren't sent by StarClan. And in fact, StarClan has no idea who sent them, and it kind of freaks them out. So StarClan isn't big or important. It's just one out of many afterlives and isn't any more powerful or influential than any of the other ones. Which is a really weird and interesting way to portray the religion in a story that puts so much focus on how important it is. Nonetheless, it's pretty normal to see the characters blame StarClan for their suffering, and Blue Star is no different. After it's found out that Tigerstar is actively trying to lead the dog pack to the ThunderClan camp, Blue Star just straight up decides that her clan is doomed and isn't worth saving anyways, because in her mind, they're nothing but a bunch of traitors. Fireheart insists on trying to save the clan, and while Blue Star cannot see the point in even trying, she does agree to evacuate with the rest of the clan, while Fireheart goes to try and get rid of the dog pack. It is at this point that Blue Star has a Hail Mary moment, and it's not something we ever actually get to see, unfortunately. But as Blue Star explains later, when she was evacuating with her clan, she saw the strong helping the weak, and that Fireheart and a few warriors were off risking their lives for their clan. She recognizes the goodness in her clan after she takes a moment to observe it for herself, and realizes that she made the right choice in choosing to save it so long ago. And if she made the right choice, StarClan could not be punishing her. And it made her reflect on why she made that choice in the first place. Because she loved ThunderClan and did not want a war-hungry monster to destroy it. And just by standing there doing nothing, she was letting that exact same scenario play out again. And so she goes to defend her clan for one last time, once again making a great sacrifice in order to save ThunderClan from a war-hungry monster, because she finally remembers what drove her to make her original sacrifice in the first place. So Blue Star goes to the gorge to help Fireheart, and finds him in the process of being ripped to shreds by the dog pack. And what he thinks are his final moments, Fireheart cries out for StarClan to help him. And then Blue Star shows up. Blue Star shows up when he cries out for StarClan, and she saves him. So Blue Star knocks the pack leader off the cliff, but he grabs her leg and drags her down with him. Fireheart jumps into the gorge after Bluestar, but he's not good at swimming, and she's dead weight, so he's struggling. But then Mistyfoot and Stonefur jump in and pull them out. Bluestar is so proud and pleasantly surprised that her children saved her, and she begs for their forgiveness, though notably does not apologize, because she now believes that she did the right thing after all. They forgive her. Bluestar tells Fireheart about her change of heart and about how the fire prophecy is actually about him, and she dies, ready to join the ranks of StarClan. There's also this cute little detail I picked up on that I thought I would point out. Bluestar tells Mistyfoot and Stonefur that if they want to talk to her, they are more than welcome to see her in her den. And then after she dies, they take her body into her den and say a proper goodbye to her. I just thought, okay. But this is not the last time we see Bluestar in the first series. When Fireheart goes to get his 9 lives from StarClan, Bluestar, who is refusing to do ceremonies at all, is the one heading the ceremony. And she gives Fireheart the life of nobility, certainty, and faith. And she tells him it's so that he can lead ThunderClan in the ways of StarClan and the Warrior Code, something she very much refused to do until right before her death. Now, what's interesting too is that Firestar goes through a speedrun version of Bluestar's arc right before the battle with BloodClan. For a moment, Firestar caught a glimpse of his former leader's terrible sense of isolation. He could not truly share it, for unlike Bluestar, he had never lost faith in the warriors of his own clan, but he was beginning to understand how she had come to doubt StarClan. So many cats had already died in Tigerstar's fierce struggle for power, and StarClan had not saved them. Firestar wondered if he was being foolish to think his warrior ancestors would help him now. Much like Bluestar making her last trip to the Moonstone, Firestar calls forth StarClan, something he could just do, I guess, I don't know, and confronts them. He asks them if they want the forest to be destroyed, which is the exact same thing Bluestar thought in the last few months of her life, that StarClan was actively trying to destroy ThunderClan. So it's fitting then that Bluestar is the one who answers him. She tells him that StarClan doesn't rule the forest. They watch and they nudge the cats on the right path, but they don't control them. They don't interfere with anyone's lives. Firestar might be destined to save the clan, but they didn't bring him here. He came on his own accord, and this comforts Firestar. He has been so upset about StarClan not stopping all the bad things that have happened, but now he understands that StarClan may walk beside them, but the cats all make their own decisions, and now he has to decide what to do. There's a similar interaction after Firestar loses his first life. First of all, it's kind of funny. Bluestar's trying to give him this long-winded monologue about faith and all that, and Firestar's just like, hey, cool, could we, maybe speed this along here? My friends are dying. Yeah, so he's angry and upset that they're keeping him there when he needs to keep fighting for his friends, and he seems to worry that despite the fact that he's the chosen one, he can't do it, because he had his first life knocked out pretty much immediately. He confronts StarClan once more, asking them if it's true that StarClan has always wanted there to be 4 clans in the forest, something that Bluestar used to tell him, because in that moment, it seems like they're okay with the clans all being destroyed. I don't know, I guess he forgot what they told him earlier. StarClan, speaking as one voice, responds. Firestar, you are wrong. There were never 4 clans in the forest. There were always 5. They then tell Firestar that he could go back to the battle, and they will go with him. And whether they literally go with him, or it's just him keeping their strength and memory with him, is pretty unclear. He is aware of their presence around him, and describes what they look like, but we don't know if he's literally seeing them, or if it's just his imagination. It doesn't matter though. Firestar finally understands the message that StarClan was trying to impart on him. StarClan does not control the clans, but resides among them as their equals. And then with StarClan all around him, Firestar kills Scourge, and the first series ends. But this is also where things get a little dicey, because this aspect of the story bothered the hell out of me as a child, and as an adult, I still think it's weird. So while there's definitely themes of faith throughout the first 6 books, it really comes to a head in the climax, when it's revealed that Scourge's biggest weakness on the battlefield is that he is an atheist. So, you know how I just kind of glossed over the leaders having 9 lives, Fig? Yep, we're back to that now. So the ceremony in which leaders get 9 lives occurs after the death of the previous leader. In the old territories, they would have to travel to High Stones, and in the lake territories, they travel to the Moon Pool. And in these locations, they would enter a dreamlike state where they meet StarClan. 9 cats who had a significant role in the leader's life, or else just generally support their leadership, will present them with an extra life, and also give them a gift that will affect some aspect of their personality. And also, the process is notably super painful. After the new leader gets all their lives, they receive the name Star, and that's it, their clan leader. We first see what it looks like when a leader loses a life from an outside perspective and into the wild, and then again in Fire and Ice. It just appears that the leader dies. They lie still for a few minutes before waking up with the wounds or illness that killed them completely healed, although it's established in Forest of Secrets that any other wounds that weren't lethal still remain. And then we get to see what losing a life looks like from the point of view of the cat going through it in the darkest hour, when Scridgy knocks a life out of Firestar. He wakes up in StarClan and all the cats who gave him a life are just like, oh, that looks like it hurt. Damn, sorry. Hey God, let's just fix you up real quick. At which point he wakes up back in his body and rejoins the battle. Now, I really like this idea. It takes the old wives' tale about cats having 9 lives and turns it into a deeply spiritual experience that one has to rise through the ranks in order to achieve. It's clever, and it should be interesting, but, well, it doesn't really affect that much. You'd think that these special cats who have 8 more lives than everyone else might be ultra powerful, or at least long living. I mean, I don't want leaders to live 9 times as long as the average cat. Of course they aren't going to grow old and die 9 times over, especially considering how many predators and illnesses and natural disasters there are. Rain Whisker got killed by a falling branch. It happens. And Squirrel Flight's hope even seemed to suggest that Bramblestar is going to have a much longer life than Squirrel Flight because he has more lives than her. Which is weird, because by and large, the leaders actually live shorter lives than average warriors. And this isn't counting leaders who had their lives knocked out early, like Broken Star and Tiger Star. Probably the most apt example is Firestar. As an apprentice, he trained along 4 other cats who were the same age as him, and 3 of those 4 cats outlived him. Ravenpaw just barely edged him out. But yeah, Sandstorm, Dustpelt, and Graystripe all outlive a cat with 9 lives when they only had 1. And if we go into the prequel novels, Dappletail, Small Ear, One Eye, and Speckletail were all shown to be older than Blue Star, and they all outlive her. Mudfur is a warrior when Crooked Star was born, and he outlives him by 18 or so months. Barkface grew up alongside Tallstar, and he lived for about a series and a half after Tallstar died. The only exception to this is Misty Star, who has been living an unreasonably long life. I think the authors have a hard time giving up characters from the first series, even when no one wants them around anymore. But yeah, no, Misty Star is an outlier. The general trend we tend to see with leaders is that they somehow live shorter lives than cats with only 1 life. It's kind of odd. As it is, the only interesting idea that is done with leaders having 9 lives is that they have a copy in StarClan. Every time a leader loses a life, a version of them in StarClan gets more and more vivid until they finally lose all their lives and take its place in StarClan. This is unique, I guess, and I can only imagine that they could do some wild stuff with a concept like that. I mean, when Firestar is on his last life, there is an almost complete second version of him hanging out in StarClan. That has to be trippy as hell. Could he talk to it? Did it fight in the battle against the Dark Forest? Probably not, because it is specifically said that it can't talk, and I don't know, I feel like that would probably be kind of an interesting thing if it could, but whatever. It's just kind of there, that's all. Just a kind of weird quirk thing hanging out in the background. And to make matters worse, there are actually some kind of weird rules when it comes to who gets 9 lives, and who doesn't. They aren't ever explained, but they're definitely there. Okay, so this is Nightstar, right? He took over after Broken Star got run out of Shadow Clan. The clan picked him to lead them because they thought that he'd be a good leader. The problem was that Broken Star wasn't killed. He was simply kicked out. And due to the fact that Shadow Clan's own leader wasn't dead, Star Clan refused to give Nightstar his 9 lives. So Nightstar, in running nose, ended up lying to the clan, saying he did get accepted by Star Clan, only for Nightstar to die of sickness a few months later. Now, I always found this to be extraordinarily unfair. Like, God forbid Shadow Clan democratically elects a leader while they're recovering from the rule of a tyrant. But this, along with the fact that Tiger Star is apparently accepted by Star Clan to be Shadow Clan's ruler after the death of Broken Star, does set up a very clear rule. Star Clan does not give new leaders 9 lives if the old leader is still alive. So in Blue Star's prophecy, Pine Star of ThunderClan leaves of his own accord to become a kitty pet, and when Sunfall goes to get his 9 lives, StarClan does some math and figures out that since Pine Star only has 1 life left, they'll subtract that 1 life from Sunstar and just gives him 8 lives instead. This would mean that it's not so much that only 1 leader in a clan is allowed at a time, but that StarClan can only give out a certain amount of lives. So if a leader hasn't used them all up yet, then the new leader has to share. So that would insinuate that when Broken Star was run out, he had all 9 lives. So there wasn't any to give to Nightstar. However, Broken Star loses his last 3 lives while being held prisoner in ThunderClan, and that wasn't too long after he was run out. So unless he sat in the road and let himself get run over 6 times right after Nightstar's ceremony, he absolutely had less than 9 lives when Nightstar was rejected by StarClan. Honestly, it's way more canon that there aren't any rules at all, and StarClan is just playing fast and loose with who they want to be leader, because Tiger Heart literally dies, goes to StarClan, and then StarClan's like, hey, we actually want you to be leader of Shadow Clan, so we're going to give you 8 lives. You already lost the first one before you got the other 8, and we're sending you back to life. Okay, have fun, new Tiger Star. Yes, there's 2 Tiger Stars in this. Seriously, don't worry, I'm not bringing the other one up in this video again. We're talking about original Tiger Star again. So, here was my thought process about the original Tiger Star. Nightstar is established as having lied about getting his 9 lives. And then when he died from illness, the clan cats all assumed that the illness knocked all 9 of his lives out at once. And then not too long after this, his replacement, Tiger Star, gets his 9 lives knocked out all at once. So as a child, I read this scene and was like, oh, Tiger Star lied about getting 9 lives too. I mean, he murdered at least 2 cats at this point and was straight up exiled for attempted murder. So it made perfect sense why StarClan would reject him. Plus, up to this point, it was made clear that StarClan would fix any lethal wounds the leader sustained. So why did Tiger Star's wound just continue to kill him over and over again? Well, clearly it's because he doesn't actually have 9 lives and is just dying really, really slowly, slipping in and out of consciousness. And since we're seeing the story from Firestar's point of view, and he believes Tiger Star has 9 lives, that's how he's interpreting his death. And Tiger Star was characterized as doing anything for power, so he would absolutely lie to become leader. So in my mind, it all added up. And I read the rest of the book eagerly awaiting the reveal that Tiger Star was never accepted by StarClan at all. And then I waited, and waited, and waited, until I was in my 20s and I read the scene where Tiger Star got his 9 lives with my own 2 eyes. Now, I'm not the only one that found Tiger Star's death weird. In 2011, a fan straight up asked Vicky Holmes if Tiger Star had been rejected by StarClan and only had 1 life, to which she responded with a very detailed description of how Tiger Star's death worked. Apparently, when Scridgy disemboweled him, he struck 9 major organs, so he bled to death from his veins, his lungs were punctured, his heart was ripped open, his liver was damaged, etc. So I guess this insinuates that StarClan only fixes 1 lethal wound at a time? Fine, whatever. My complaint here isn't from a lore perspective, but from a thematic one. Because after Tigerstar loses all of his lives and Scrooge McDuck announces he's taking over the forest, Barley shows up and gives Firestar this piece of advice. His one great strength is his one great weakness. Scourge and his warriors don't believe in StarClan. BloodClan has no medicine cats, I've already told you. They don't care for the sick, and if they don't believe in StarClan, there aren't any signs that can be interpreted. Then, they don't follow the warrior code, and you're telling me that's a weakness? All it means is that they can do as they like, with no code of honor to stop them. That's true. But think, Firestar. Without the warrior code, you might be as bloodthirsty as Scourge. You might even be better at fighting him. But without the belief in StarClan, what are you then? Firestar kind of disregards this at first, because yeah, that's a weird piece of advice, especially since Barley isn't a clan cat and would have no reason to actually believe in StarClan until the actual battle when Scriggle knocks Firestar's first life out. Firestar wakes up in StarClan, gets his wounds healed, jumps back to life, and goes to finish the fight. Scringer is very understandably shocked that the cat he just killed came back to life, and this interaction happens. How? I killed you! You did, but I am a leader with 9 lives who fights alongside StarClan. Can you say as much? For the first time, he thought he saw a flicker of uncertainty in Scourge's cold eyes, and at last, Firestar understood what Barley had told him. Gridge's lack of belief in StarClan was his greatest weakness. Without belief, without the laws and customs of the Forest Clans, Scruggy did not have the 9 lives of a true leader. When he died, he would be dead forever. And then Firestar kills Scourge, thinking to himself that he sure isn't going to StarClan when he dies. So yes, this is very clearly supposed to be a theme about how faith makes you strong. Character says that the villain's weakness is his lack of faith. Hero is resurrected due to having strong faith. Villain is not resurrected because he doesn't have any faith. Firestar's faith is waning before and during the Battle of BloodClan, and as a result, they are losing the battle. However, after meeting with StarClan, his faith is stronger than ever, and he is able to defeat BloodClan. Plus, you have Bluestar losing faith, which causes her to hurt her clan, and then later she gets her faith back, which allows her to save her clan. And that's all well and good, but where this falls apart is with Tigerstar. Tigerstar's whole deal is that he wants power. He goes through a phase where he wants revenge, but by the darkest hour, he pretty readily pivots back to power again. He proposes his plan to combine the 4 clans into one, and he uses the name of StarClan to do it. Great change! And StarClan has shown me that it is ShadowClan's task to prepare every cat in the forest to meet it. ShadowClan has the favor of StarClan. StarClan have shown me the way. Tallstar, Firestar, I want you to recognize that this is the right decision and come to me willingly. But don't delay too long. StarClan will not wait forever. So this is Tigerstar recognizing how much the clan cats rely on their warrior ancestors, trying to manipulate them into thinking he is some kind of chosen one, a messiah chosen to lead them to a brighter, more beautiful future, like a cult leader acting as if they speak the word of God, or else some other higher being in order to get power. And when Firestar decides to expose Tigerstar for who he really is, a storm suddenly breaks out, and Tigerstar jumps at the interruption, crying that it is a sign from StarClan that he is right, and they agree with everything he is saying. But, of course, they don't. Everything Tigerstar says is eventually proven wrong. StarClan did not send the storm. StarClan does not want the 4 clans to turn into one. He is blatantly lying about following the will of StarClan. This is all nothing but an egotistic power grab. And in fact, Firestar is the one in which StarClan has shown the way. Firestar is the chosen one. StarClan resurrects Firestar when Scrooge kills him, whereas Tigerstar is killed in one hit when he tries to use the name of StarClan to force his will. So this kind of sets Tigerstar up as a false prophet. He pretends to have faith, but he doesn't, so he fails. Whereas Firestar does truly have faith, so he succeeds. Except that's not true. In Into the Wild, there is a moment where Tigerclaw travels into Highstones with Bluestar and Firepaw in order to visit the Moonstone. This is a very spiritual place that cats use to commune with StarClan, and Tigerstar, who up to this point has been shown as fearless, suddenly becomes frightened and runs out. Bluestar then tells Firepaw, I think Tiger Claw was surprised by the power of the Moonstone. In the world above, Tiger Claw is a fearless and mighty warrior. But down here, where the spirits of StarClan speak, a cat needs a different kind of strength. So I always interpreted this scene as Tiger Claw being afraid of facing his warrior ancestors because as far as he knows, StarClan were the only ones who knew his sins. That he killed Redtail and was planning on killing Blue Star. And he was not ready to face up for what he'd done and who he was. And I think that's super interesting, and I wish it didn't immediately get forgotten about. I mean, you'd think that if Tiger Claw couldn't even handle walking into a holy place without fleeing in terror, getting his 9 lives would have been terrifying for him. But aside from one moment where it's mentioned he was tense, he is extremely confident that he will be approved by StarClan, and once it's clear that he has that approval, he is constantly thinking about how stupid the StarClan cats are, and that he knows better than them. To be fair though, even if his fear of StarClan is more or less forgotten, this is still a very clear setup for the finale with Scourge. Blue Star says that a cat needs a different type of strength when it comes to StarClan. Tiger Claw flees out of the cave, but Firepaw doesn't. In fact, Firepaw isn't even scared, he's just curious. So Firepaw is stronger in spirituality than Tiger Claw. And when both cats face off with Scourge, Firestar is able to defeat Scourge with the power of his faith, but Tiger Star is just not strong enough. However, regardless of how weak in spirituality Tiger Star might be, he was approved by StarClan. And since we see that he believed them and Into the Wild, and that he spoke with them when he got his 9 lives, it's very clear that Tiger Star's problem was not a lack of faith. No, despite everything he'd done, StarClan still happily gave him their approval to lead ShadowClan. In the battle with Scrud, Firestar defines a true leader as having 9 lives from StarClan, and Tiger Star had those. There are some very clear differences between Tiger Star and Firestar, obviously, but at the moment when Skirgle is introduced into the story, they are in the exact same position. 2 cats who have combined 2 clans into one, about to meet in battle, not born into the clans that they are leading, but received approval and were blessed with 9 lives by StarClan. Hell, there was even a prophecy saying that Tiger Star would save ShadowClan and lead it to greatness, which is very similar to the prophecy Firestar had in ThunderClan. They went about this in very different ways, but, at this moment, they are essentially equals. So the fact that for Firestar having 9 lives is an advantage against Scourge, but for Tiger Star it is completely irrelevant, is kind of a problem. The series told us that a cat having 9 lives is not a strength against Scrudge. He literally ripped those lives out of Tiger Star with 1 hit. Evil or not, those lives were gifted by StarClan themselves, and Screed took them from him like they were nothing. Scourge is absolutely floored when Firestar returns from the dead, and he does seem to have a flicker of doubt. But do you know what he does immediately after? Gets ready to use the same move he used to rip out Tiger Star's 9 lives. And it doesn't work this time, not because Firestar's faith was more pure, but because Firestar recognized the move and jumped out of the way. Firestar was saved by the power of remembering events that happened like 3 days earlier. If he hadn't, there's no reason to believe he wouldn't have gone out the same way as Tiger Star. So, Scourge's ultimate weakness isn't his lack of faith. How can it be when he can destroy all 9 of StarClan's gifts with 1 hit? No. His weakness is that he uses the same move over and over again in the exact same way. And the books do have some thoughts on atheists, believe it or not, like atheists who aren't villains. Weirdly enough, they've all been cats who were born outside the clan. Cloudtail is Fireheart's nephew who was brought to ThunderClan as a tiny kid. He grows to be kind of a little brat and has a hard time following the rules and is constantly bad-mouthing clan customs and beliefs, something that is chalked up to him not being fully adjusted yet, which never made sense to me. He didn't even know he was born outside ThunderClan for a while. With Daisy's kids in the second arc, it's pretty much just stated that they're practically clan-born because they're too young to remember anything else. There might be something going on here. Cloudpaw was treated unfairly throughout his kithood, receiving harsh punishments and being mocked for his heritage. So maybe he's lasting out because of that. Maybe. And then it's revealed that Cloudpaw does not believe in StarClan. This is presented as like the worst thing ever. Fireheart stared down at his apprentice with cold dread, chilling the blood in his veins. He had known for a long time that Cloudpaw had no respect for the warrior code, but he had not realized that his apprentice did not believe in StarClan at all. Fortunately, he does end up maturing and growing into a somewhat respectable warrior, except he never starts believing it's StarClan, or I mean, at least not until the dead come back and start walking around in front of him. Kinda hard to deny that. But up until that point, he remained a steadfast atheist, and honestly, I kinda like the perspective he brought to certain things at the end of the first arc. When Firestar becomes leader, despite being physically and emotionally devastated, he has to walk all the way to High Stones almost immediately in order to get his 9 lives. Cloudtail picks up on his exhaustion when he comes back and says it's ridiculous that he had to torture himself like that in order to be seen as a true leader when he's already proven himself over and over again. Firestar is shocked and appalled by this sentiment. Firestar gave his kid a hard stare. He was grateful for Cloudtail's loyalty and respect, but felt as frustrated as ever that the younger cat did not share his beliefs. He wished he could tell the White Warrior exactly what he had experienced, if only to shock him into respect for StarClan, but he knew that was impossible. I remember feeling so weird about this passage as a kid. Like, this protagonist in a kid series is so offended that his nephew isn't religious like him and wants to force him to be a believer. And the way that this scene is framed is that we're supposed to agree with Firestar. But honestly, Cloudtail is kind of right here. Why shouldn't Firestar get to rest before his leader ceremony? Why should he have to go on an entire days-long quest in order to be seen as legitimate when he's the only reason ThunderClan still exists at this point? There are so many very specific rules in this series, and like, Cloudtail is pretty much one of the only cats who ever questions them. Earlier in the series, Fireheart is appointed deputy, but he's appointed slightly later than the allotted deadline. So there's a chunk of the clan who don't see him as legitimate. Like, he's not truly the deputy because Bluestar was 10 minutes late appointing him. Or how when Tallstar made One Whisker his new deputy, and he said the wrong words. And the main characters had to cover this up because otherwise WindClan might not have accepted One Whisker. And honestly, I could do more with Cloudtail critiquing the weird ways the clans do things. It's honestly kind of refreshing because, God, no one ever questions anything ever. Except for Mothwing, who is also an atheist. Mothwing is introduced in Midnight, along with her brother Hawkfrost as the soon-to-be new Medicine Cat apprentice of RiverClan. Apparently, some cats felt uncomfortable about her holding such an important spiritual role in the clan when she was born a rogue, so they waited to see if StarClan would send a side. One morning, the current Medicine Cat Mudfur found a Mothwing outside of his den and declared that StarClan had sent their blessing. So Mothwing began her training, and she formed a friendship with Firestar's daughter, Leafpaw, who was also training as a Medicine Cat. And at this time, she is presented as being eager, but also extremely unsure. She wants to be a Medicine Cat very badly, but she isn't sure that StarClan would accept a former rogue. She goes to the Moonstone though, and apparently they accept her without issue. Fast forward a few books. Mudfur dies, and Mothwing becomes the full Medicine Cat of RiverClan. Here we get our first hint that maybe her faith is a little shaky for a Medicine Cat. I can't believe he's gone, she mewed. He hasn't gone far, Leafpaw comforted her. He's with StarClan. I hope so, Mothwing murmured. The next book confirms this as Mothwing comes out to Leafpaw at a gathering. She explains that she doesn't believe in StarClan, and it just rocks Leafpaw's entire world. Leafpaw felt the ground sway beneath her paws. Mothwing was questioning everything she had believed since she was a kid, but it was impossible to defend when everything she knew about StarClan, all the encounters she had with them, were inside her own head. It's not the same, she insisted. That's what faith in StarClan means, to go on searching and believing even when there aren't any signs. We won't know for certain that they are really there and watching over us until it's our time to go and walk with StarClan. Mothwing shook her head. I'm sorry, Leafpaw. It's just not like that for me. Maybe it's because my mother was a rogue. I could be a loyal RiverClan cat without believing all the myths about our warrior ancestors. Leafpaw goes on to question Mothwing about the Mothwing side, and Mothwing looks panicked, but is interrupted before she can answer and takes the opportunity to flee the awkward conversation. Later in Sunset, Hawkfrost suddenly makes an announcement at a gathering saying that Mothwing had gotten a sign from StarClan. She tells the 4 clans about a dream she had where 2 pebbles are stopping the river from flowing. She's visually very uncomfortable, and it's specifically mentioned that Leafpool looks horrified the entire time. She approaches Mothwing after the gathering, only to hear Hawkfrost yelling at her. It would make sense for this to be the moment where Leafpool learns the truth, but that comes later, when Spotted Leaf comes back from the dead to have 2 kittens rip the wing off a butterfly, so that Leafpool has a fever dream where she sees Hawkfrost put the moth's wing outside of Mudfur's den. I don't know why this is super necessary. Mothwing tells Leafpool about it later, and then says this. I wanted to be a medicine cat so much, and at first I tried to believe it's StarClan, I really did. When Mudfur took me to the Moonstone, I thought I had a dream where I met some cats from StarClan, and they showed me things that were happening in the forest. Then when I got back to RiverClan, Hawkfrost told me what he'd done with the moth's wing, and I realized StarClan must just be a story, and that everything I had seen was just an ordinary dream. Because if StarClan really existed, they wouldn't let him do such a wicked thing or torment me like this. So unlike Cloudtail, Mothwing being born outside the clan was just kind of a red herring. She has a deeper and more tragic reason for not believing in StarClan. Plus, the one concrete piece of evidence she had that StarClan was real turned out to be a lie. So it's understandable why her faith would be crushed. Hawkfrost did this because he wants to be deputy, and he wanted to blackmail Mothwing into making up signs for him. And Mothwing goes along with it for a while, but then she realizes that Hawkfrost couldn't actually reveal anything because RiverClan would never accept a deputy who made up signs from StarClan, so she just starts to ignore him. I like Mothwing's character too. Whereas Cloudtail could come off as a bit of a jerk, Mothwing is very respectful and very open to her friends' viewpoints, and though she attempts to explain away some signs and dreams, she never actually tries to convince Leafpool that she's wrong about StarClan. It's my fault. Mudfur came to me in a dream and told me where you could find catmint, but I was caring for a sick kit, and I didn't have time to come. Anyway, I didn't know if you would believe me. Oh, I would. I would never doubt the strength of your faith. Which I find really endearing, actually. Mothwing doesn't believe in StarClan, and usually logics her way through any explanation of them being real, but she believes in Leafpool, and she's glad Leafpool has this figure in her life that makes her happy. And, I don't know, it's very cute. I get why people ship these two. Also, Leafpaw has a lot of lines about how pretty Mothwing is. Like, a lot. Mothwing is confident that she is more than qualified for the healing aspect of her job, and while she definitely struggles a lot in her first few books, she gets the hang of it soon enough. But she's terribly anxious about the fact that she's not qualified for the spiritual aspect, and also feels guilty about her new apprentice Willowpaw. She doesn't want to damage her faith, but know that she can't teach her anything about StarClan. Leafpool is happy to teach her about the faith aspect though, and so Willowpaw takes the responsibility of interpreting signs from StarClan. So that solves that problem, maybe a bit too conveniently, but it works. And it's nice that Leafpool doesn't try to force anything on Mothwing. She actually respects her boundaries and meets her where she's at, and they're able to maintain a lovely friendship. I like how when all the other medicine cats are receiving dreams from StarClan, Mothwing just takes a nap. That's pretty funny. And once Willowpaw gets old enough, Mothwing just sends her to the moon pool on her own. She doesn't even bother. She will, like Cloudtail, occasionally offer a different viewpoint on a situation, though. I really like this quote on how absurd it is that the clans trust the judgment of StarClan in every situation. They're just dead warriors. Do you think that when they die, they get clever and brave? Don't you realize that some of them may be as foolish and wrong-headed as they were when they were alive? You've never met a warrior from StarClan. You're just guessing. So are they! Yes! The series literally established early on that StarClan are pretty powerless and don't know anything about anything, but the clans still follow their word to a T anyways, even when it's not in their best interests. And Mothwing is the only one who sees and calls out how ludicrous this is. A huge portion of Misty Star's omen is also focused on Mothwing and her beliefs. Misty Star is really upset when she finds out that she doesn't believe in StarClan, and attempts to strip her of her Medicine Cat title for a while. In probably the dumbest move she could have made, her son is literally bleeding to death on the ground, and she won't let the more qualified healer touch him, and instead honestly thinks that the younger, more inexperienced cat is going to perform miracles because she believes in StarClan. However, StarClan actually sends him off this time, and unlike the fake side where an actual moth had to lose its wing, this time a moth actually gains its wings and takes flight for the first time. Misty Star comes around and lets Mothwing save her son, and it ends with this discussion about how faith is really more complex than just believe in a higher power. It also means loyalty to what matters most, which Mothwing has. She doesn't have faith in StarClan, but she has faith in RiverClan, and that's really the important part of being a medicine cat. So the narrative, for the most part, does support being accepting of Mothwing's alternate way of looking at things. And that's kinda nice. It's a far cry from Firestar wanting to shock his nephew into being a true believer. But as accepting as the characters are about Mothwing, she is still portrayed as being wrong, and it's pretty easy to see why. I actually remember back when I stumbled into the Tumblr fandom, I saw people lamenting the fact that the first series was super subtle with the StarClan stuff, and now the series has completely gone off the rails and it's stupid. And I hard disagree that it used to be subtle. Blue Star straight up died and came back to life in the first book. And then Fireheart is dating a dead girl and he gets his 9 lives. And then Tiger Star dies 9 times. There's a lot here. But I do see where they're coming from. There was some genuine subtlety in the first arc in regards to Blue Star's crisis of faith. Granted, then Tiger Star rapidly started resurrecting all over the floor, but still, up until the 6th book, StarClan is at least kind of toned down, existing mostly in the general culture of the clans and sometimes appearing in 1 or 2 dreams per book. But then we have the 2nd arc, which literally opens with a scene that takes place in StarClan, and we have a medicine cat as a point of view character, and nearly every other protagonist is a chosen one who speaks directly with cats from both StarClan and the Dark Forest. Other religions are introduced, and a character dies tragically and then is immediately reborn as a tiny little kitten. Then the 3rd arc features more chosen one characters, one of whom has regular interactions with StarClan cats and another who trains in the Dark Forest. The ghost cats who live underground are introduced, as well as the entire culture they come from. There's a cult leader who knows things StarClan doesn't. One of the main characters travels into the afterlife to bring a character back from the cusp of death. The 4th arc has all the dead cats coming back and beating the hell out of each other. You get the point. And now here we are with the Broken Code, the most recent arc, and we have an important character being possessed as the main conflict, and multiple other characters being dragged into the afterlife. And they just literally got to a point where they couldn't have atheist characters anymore, because the existence of an afterlife became completely impossible to deny. Even that one really insightful quote from Mothwing, where she questions the status quo, doesn't make a lot of sense. The context here is that she found out that all the medicine cats have received word from StarClan that they need to stop talking to each other, and she is extremely frustrated that they all decided to listen to them. But why hasn't she questioned how every single medicine cat managed to have the exact same dream that told them the exact same thing at the exact same time? How could she possibly chalk that up to being a coincidence? Not to mention that Mothwing was the medicine cat for 2 different leaders. Surely she would have noticed them dying and coming back to life over and over again. Cloudtail just stood there and watched Tiger Star die 9 times. What, did that leave no impact on him? But no, he doesn't seem to believe in StarClan or any kind of an afterlife until the Great Battle in The Last Hope. And what's crazy is that even after the Great Battle, they actually kind of tried to make it so that Mothwing still didn't believe in an afterlife. Even though she'd witnessed the Great Battle with the Dark Forest, she never truly believed that those cats were her own ancestors, but simply thought of them as rogues from beyond clan territory. What the hell? 2 of the Hellcats who came back were her father and brother, right? I mean, yeah, she never met Tiger Star, But Hawkfrost? She should have definitely recognized Hawkfrost. Now, granted, this is retconned later in Mothwing's secret, because of course it was. We get to see her POV during the Great Battle, and she does recognize Hawkfrost. And she has a conversation with her old dead mentor Mudfur, where she realizes that StarClan is real. But she still thinks that they're dumb and worthless. Mudfur tells her that StarClan doesn't make any mistakes, and Mothwing, who originally didn't believe in StarClan because she couldn't believe that StarClan would let bad things happen, is angry that StarClan lets bad things happen. Even more than that, a lot of the suffering she just witnessed was a direct result of StarClan's terrible decisions, and she's furious. She acknowledges that they're real, but still refuses to speak to them, seeing no use for their brand of wisdom, and continues her duties without seeking their wisdom, which is bomb. Good for her, honestly. And this is never retconned, by the way. As of the newest book, she still refuses to commune with StarClan, explains her biggest fear is a living cat taking the word of dead cats too seriously and doing horrible things in their name, and has even seemingly changed the idea of what a medicine cat even is, since when Shadowsight loses his ability to speak to StarClan, literally no one cares and says he's a good medicine cat anyways. So that's cool, but Mothwing's secret still ends on this weird note where Mothwing reflects on how everything's worked out perfectly and she's exactly where she should be. And it gives me vibes. It gives me vibes that even though our point of view character despises StarClan and wants nothing to do with them, the actual story itself is trying to nudge the reader into thinking StarClan is pretty cool. Like, hey, Mothwing doesn't realize it, but this is the destiny StarClan laid out for her. And it's worked out perfectly. You see, StarClan really doesn't make any mistakes. Everything's worked out exactly as it should have. And I'm just like, The adding of atheist characters to the story kind of leaves a weird aftertaste to this whole thing. If all the characters just kind of knew and accepted that this obviously real thing was there really wouldn't be anything to think about. Just yes, absolutely, this is how the world works. But by adding characters who have a different worldview, it kind of makes things complicated somewhat. In the main series, at least, we only get the point of view from characters who 100% believe in StarClan and who are either offended, annoyed, or completely flabbergasted by cats who don't. And consistently, these reactions are proven right. Having faith and believing in your ancestors is often the thing that saves the day, and cats who don't are either punished and killed, or forced to change their beliefs to match everyone else's as the story goes on. And even if the new converts still have negative feelings towards this religion, they are presented as being short-sighted, unable to see the bigger picture and truly understand all the good StarClan has done for them. And that's just ridiculous. The newest book literally features StarClan admitting that they made a mistake, that they shouldn't have let Ashfur into StarClan, and that was a straight-up error on their part that caused a lot of pain and suffering. And yet, StarClan refuses to take any step to correct their mistakes. There are cats in the Dark Forest who have been trying their best to be better and have even tried to redeem themselves when they were still alive, but StarClan refuses to let them into StarClan because, oops, it's too late. Decision's already been made. Sorry. Like, seriously? You admit to making a mistake in choosing where a cat went when he died, but refuse to acknowledge that you might have done that with other cats? Especially since it turns out that the metrics for who is allowed in StarClan are complete nonsense. It said in this book that there is a strict judgment for who is and isn't allowed in StarClan, which, first of all, somewhat contradicts Sunset, where Darkstripe doesn't understand why he isn't in StarClan, implying he just got dumped in the Dark Forest without a trial, and directly contradicts the Forgotten Warrior, where Blue Star straight up says about Ashfur, it's not StarClan's place to judge him. If he found his way here, then he must deserve to be here. And second, Mudclaw, who straight up organized a coup, and Ashfur, an attempted murderer, were allowed into StarClan. But Leafpool, who was a kindly and devout medicine cat, who fell in love with a cat from another clan, who was actually destined to give birth to the Chosen Ones. Like, StarClan basically told her that she was going to do that. almost got rejected. Seriously? They said Ashfur's crime was loving too much, but what the hell did Leafpool do then? We also got this little line from the somehow still living Misty Star when the question comes up on who should be sent to the Dark Forest. We don't need a rule. A warrior who has a relationship with a cat from another clan is disloyal. It's as simple as that. Misty Star, did you forget where you came from? Misty Star is really out here saying that her mom should go to hell for giving birth to her. Like, do you think Blue Star went through this whole arc of getting her faith back and learning to trust StarClan again, only for her to have to grovel to even get let in? That's a really depressing thought. Not to mention that period of time where it was considered canon that cats were getting sent to the Dark Forest for being sad about their dead children and being upset about their disability, which is its own other can of worms that we're going to have to talk about in another video. But freaking yikes. Freckle Wish is apparently there now, so great. That doesn't seem needlessly cruel at all. And this is called out in the book. Rootspring calls StarClan out for being hypocrites, asking if any of them have never broken the warrior code, and it almost looks like it's setting up for either a redemption for the Dark Forest cats, or else a change in how StarClan works, but no, of course not. It's shown in this series time and time again that StarClan really are just useless idiots who never do anything to actually help anyone, and the little bit of power they do have is usually constantly being used in the worst possible ways. Like, alright, maybe you couldn't have stopped Tiger Claw from turning into the Zodiac Killer, but surely you didn't have to reward him, right? Or Broken Star too. He had killed the previous leader before he got his 9 lives and was actually a child murderer. Like, perhaps it would make things worse if the serial killers were harder to kill, huh? Like, you know, maybe fire wouldn't have to save the clans if you weren't making it so the clans had to be saved. Like, none of you fought to tell Blue Star that her future deputy murdered her old deputy that one time when she went to the Moonstone, despite it being totally possible for StarClan cats to have full conversations with living cats because it happens all the time. Redtail's death even kind of implies that StarClan chose not to do anything because Fireheart was gonna take care of it. That's completely absurd. Not to mention all the garbage they spew in Omen of the Stars, forcing the medicine cats to stop talking to each other, despite that being a clearly terrible idea. But yet they're continually held up as being this beacon of all that is good and pure, and some StarClan cats even seem to expect that level of respect. And it's strange to think that this is a children's series where being religious is something that's proven to be the correct thing 100% of the time, and where any dissenting opinions on the matter are portrayed as either being a tragedy or pure arrogance. And no matter how many times it's shown that the religion in the story is not all-knowing, often wrong, and sometimes cruel, and without any real power to show for themselves, it always defaults to the status quo, where it's considered the correct thing to trust and believe in StarClan no matter what. I don't think there is anything malicious going on here, and I don't think there is any kind of purposeful allegory. Characters being resurrected is pretty standard when making comparisons to Christianity, with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe being a pretty obvious example, and Firestar being brought back from the dead being the thing that shows off the power of faith, and ultimately saving the day is very reminiscent of that. And there is undeniably a very clear theme of having faith being the most important thing in the first series, but things go off the rails really quickly once we get past this point, and it's really hard to point to specific spiritual aspects later on and claim that it's similar to any real-life religion, especially since Vicky Holmes has claimed to actively avoid writing StarClan like any particular real-life religion. But if I were to guess, it's probably just like the Medicine Cat thing, where it's just the author's biases slipping through into their writing. And that just kinda is what it is. Sometimes we get something kinda cool out of it, sometimes it's half-baked and completely ridiculous. But for better or for worse, the spiritual aspect is so intertwined into the core of this series, it's impossible to separate the two. I just wish maybe they would explore some new avenues with StarClan, maybe dig a little deeper and show that StarClan in the Dark Forest might not be as different as they initially appear. And the groundwork is certainly there, so who knows? Maybe in the new series that just got announced. But I kinda doubt it. StarClan has always been portrayed as the good guys, and they probably always will be. And, I guess that just kind of is how it is. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, before the end of the year. I thought I would start doing these dumb little things at the end of videos. I usually just kind of stop them, but maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Still a work in progress. I don't know when this is gonna get out, but if it's after what I want to get out, I hope y'all had a good holiday season. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.